Welcome everyone. We are with Luke Fenwick. We're going to be doing the next episode of Purposely. Welcome, Luke.
Morning. Thank you so much for having me, Emily. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to share your story. So before we get into it, the first question I like to ask every one of my guests is, if you're at a barbie or a dinner party, and we're in Melbourne and we're allowed to do that now, so it's pretty exciting. And someone said, "Oh, g'day, Luke. How are you? Nice to meet you." How would you explain what it is you do? Because you have a pretty interesting background. I've done a bit of stalking and research.
Yeah.
You used to work for Moet or Moet. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly because I'm not French. In sales.
Moet. Yes.
Yeah, Moet. And now you're a coach and you're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So
yeah,
how do you explain, like, in a few words, what it is you do?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. So I would say to someone that I'm a life impact coach, and my role is, how do I help people, understand the legacy or the story that they're looking to create, and how do they create, a strategy and, goals to get there. And that's a really big thing that I'm looking to do at the moment. I'm looking to impact as many people as I can, 1 million people by 2025. And that's what I do. So it's all around helping people. It's absolutely around, how do I make this world a better place than what it was before I got here. So that's what I do. And it's very, very different, as you said, from what I was doing originally in corporate roles for, Moet, Hennnessy for 7 years, then professional sports at Melbourne United for another 4, and then a very short stint in the global advertising agency, and then, doing this.
So how did you get into coaching? Because from my research, you've based your coaching philosophies around the Jay Shetty Genius School, Tony Robbins, and some other kind of big names. But how did you decide, you know what, I don't want to work in this corporate world anymore, and I want to actually help people and have an impact? Was there a moment, or?
Yeah, there was, and the moment was, a pretty big moment. It was, you could say a breakdown, but it certainly was a, really big breakthrough for myself. So I'd left Melbourne United, a place that I had, great passion for. It was about bringing the sport back, and I loved seeing the mums and dads in the stands, and all of them enjoying the sport. So I left there and went into an advertising marketing, world, and really look forward to that job for the next 10 years or whatnot. But it was wrong place for me, not the wrong place for other people, but wrong place for me. And this created angst, anxiety, and all these kinds of things. So, I had this moment of, I need to not do this, and I need to spend some time on myself. And, I had a lot of conversations with my wife, and it was around, well, how do I be the best person I could be, the best dad and the best husband? And many, many years ago, I'd done a Tony Robbins seminar, 4-day seminar, and always like, I'd love to do that life coaching business, but the corporate stuff always got in my way. But I was always doing coaching and mentoring for the best part of 20 years. And then this breakthrough came. I had the moment of, okay, like, let's do something else. And I mentioned it before, I've got a little boy, he's 2.5. And I was like, well, how do I do things to make this place better for him as he grows up? And that led me to, well, I want to be a life coach. I want to continue to help people, because I'd always enjoyed that at work. I'd missed out on that in the last job, but how do I help people? How do I make a difference? How do I impact on lives? And then that led me to this. So that's how I got here. But there was a lot of angst and challenge and soul searching for me to figure out, well, this is my next steps, and this is where I want to go to.
Amazing. Yeah, sometimes those moments, we were talking about this just before we got online, the moments of pain and suffering lead to the biggest breakthroughs. And at the time, you don't really see it or realize it, but you probably be familiar with this saying, which is one that I love: things don't happen to you, they happen for you.
Yeah. If I kept on doing the path I was going down, and I talk a lot about legacy, but the path I was going down is, my legacy was going to be, I'd provide for my family, earn a lot of money, do some great things, but I wasn't going to be the best person I could be, and that was going to impact on everything else. So that's why this kind of change happened. And certainly, you know, for so long I was always focused on, well, what's the next goal? What's the next goal? What's the next goal? And wasn't having those moments of reflection. And it wasn't until everything went sideways and pear-shaped that I've gone, okay, you know, wow, let's spend some time to really dig into this and understand more to go forward, you know, to progress and grow and, you know, get on a different path.
So as a coach, you've obviously done a lot of self-development yourself. I think anyone who's done coaching, when you do a coaching qualification or course, they essentially tear you a new one. They break you down and then build you back up and teach you all of these strategies. Because if to be a coach, you have to have gone through the transformation yourself. You have to do the work. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, look, you know, you see a lot of coaches that are going through the work still, you know, in regards to just, you know, figuring yourself out, because we're never complete. And I think if anybody's sitting there listening today or, you know, later, you know, on reflection saying, well, you know, when am I going to be complete, or when am I going to be perfect? Like that's not what life's about. And that's certainly, you know, not what a coaching piece is about too, because, you know, it's not about myself and where I'm at. It's about me when I talk to clients to understand where they're at, you know, and meet them at that position that they're on their journey. Because it's not about me saying, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. It's all around, how do I raise awareness with people? How do I enable them to discover more of themselves? How do I enable them to see those roadblocks that have kind of gotten in their ways over their life? Like, what are those beliefs look like? You know, why are those things holding them back? So, you know, it's really, really important to have a good grasp on who you are as a person, because, you know, you're dealing with someone and there's emotions involved and whatnot. But absolutely, it's working with someone to get the best out of the situation, and certainly to say, well, where are you trying to get to and how do you want to get there? How do we make that happen? And then supporting along the way in all kinds of different facets. You know, some people need motivation, some people are a little less so, some people need the strategy, some people, as you mentioned, need really to be broken down all the way back to often, you know, when they're 10, 12, you know, 15 or whatever it is, and something's happened in their life that then shapes how they go about everything, you know, from that moment onwards. And it's about, how do we go, well, do you need this any longer? You know, is this actually doing you any good?
Yeah. Someone once told me, it was someone I did NLP with, neuro-linguistic programming. I've done a few qualifications. And they said something that stuck with me, that how we do something is how we do everything. And it's so true. Like, we just all have these little habits and nuances and these patterns of behavior. And
Yes.
until someone brings them into your conscious or your awareness, you don't even realize that the way you do something is the way you do everything. And I feel like those types of not interventions, but those types of aha moments where people are like, oh my God, yes, that is my strategy for doing everything.
Yeah.
That is why I'm getting this outcome. Holy shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's a great scientist over in the States, BJ Fogg, and he talks about, you know, ability, prompt, and motivation. When they come together, they form habits. So, you know, until you start to break it down, and that's sometimes why people have difficulty forming the habits they want, because they might say, well, I've got a little bit of ability and, you know, I have a bit of motivation, but there's no prompt in my life. So when you have, you know, two of those three, then chances are it can fall over. But when you say, right, I'm highly motivated, I've got prompts along the way, and now I've taught myself the ability to do this particular task, then that's how habits form. And that's a big part on, well, how do you make change, or how do you get to the goals that you're looking to do? Because all of a sudden you can block it out and say, right, here's all these things that I want to put into my life that get me to where I want to go. And that's a big part of it, to understand those things.
So what's a prompt? Like, can you give us an example of what that would look like?
Yeah, like a prompt is a reminder, right? So so if I'm looking to do some kind of thing around health and fitness. Like, what are the prompts that I can put into my life to make sure that I have that constant reminder that this is something that's really important to me? So you could do some, really old school kind of stuff in regards to sticky notes. You could do reminders on the phone. You could have something that sits on your door, so every time you walk out of it. Now, some people hang things in their cars, so when they're going to work, or on their desk, if we're in the office, so to speak. But that prompt is that ongoing, hey, you need to do this in order to get to that.
Yeah, I love it. It's so true. So tell us about Jay Shetty's Genius School, because I didn't know that Jay Shetty actually had a coaching school. So does he have a certain philosophy of coaching, and what's the basis of it? I'm really curious to learn more.
Yeah, so to be quite honest, I hadn't heard of Jay. I was one of the very, very few people that had not heard of this guy, making wisdom, go viral. I had not heard of him until someone said, hey, you should check this guy out. I was looking at a few different places to do further studies. And so when I started to look at Jay, he's got this whole think like a monk piece, which was part of, his learning. But then he brings into all of the scientific research and really strong data as well. So he's got, uses a wheel of life at the start that says this is the basis of everything. How do we have great awareness? How do we have accountability? What are the goals and steps to get into process? How do we have this mastery of the things that we're trying to learn? So yeah, absolutely amazing school. People from all over the world, which has been brilliant. You tune in at, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, whatever time in the morning it is, to be supported by this amazing community that he's that he's helping grow. And the teachers there are amazing as well, like really, really supportive. So thoroughly recommend it. I can say that.
Amazing.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
a lot of
part
fun.
of what you do as a life impact coach is really helping people tap into their purpose and work out what their legacy is going to be. And I think that young millennials are so into this. Like, they don't want to just have a job that's the 9 to 5 and they just go in on the death march to the corporate office in the city. Like, people are searching for more now. Like, we've now sold this kind of dream that you can have it all. You can have a career where you're on fire, where you have a purpose. So how do you help people? Because everyone wants to know, and this is part of what I do with a lot of my clients, but everyone wants to know, what is my purpose and what is my legacy? How do you help people tap into that?
Yeah. So the legacy for me, the way I talk to people about that is that's the entire story of your life. And it's, it's often about the pages that you're writing. So it's every single chapter, and it's what someone would say about you, many, many years further down the track when you kind of, leave the face of the earth. And years ago, people used to talk about legacy, and it was, well, have I left a house behind, or have I left a car behind, or money? That was a very old school thinking. And certainly it can be an important part of it, right, for future generations from a financial side of things. But legacy is the fingerprints that you've left on the earth. So it is how you live and how you love, the values that you provide and show people, and how are you kind of nurturing that next generation to come along. So when I talk about legacy to people, this is what is the whole story that you're looking to create? What do you want to be remembered by? And it's not just a work piece. It's like the holistic side of things. When I say, or when people say, look, talk to me about purpose, like the purpose is what is really getting you out of bed and what is driving you, which shouldn't be mistaken for like a mission, right? So purpose is something that's really personal, and it's a bit more of an internal thing. So my purpose was around being the best dad, husband. How do I impact this world for my son? Like, that's what gets me out of bed. And then that led into the vision and the mission, which is, how do I impact 1 million lives by 2025? So I know there's a bit to it, and sometimes it can get a little bit confusing. What's my mission and what's my vision and what's my purpose? But I always look at it and say, your legacy, this is the big story. Your purpose is what gets you out of bed in the morning, and it's more of an internal thing as well. And then that mission is, I can articulate a little bit more. It's something, that someone sitting across is really going to understand, and it's nearly that kind of path and journey that you can see a little bit further down the track. So how do I help people discover that? Like, there's absolutely a whole discovery and awareness piece. It's saying, well, you know, what are you passionate about? You know, what are you really, really good at? You know, if you're wanting to create a life and legacy and purpose and all these things, then you need to have this understanding, because it's all good and well to say, hey, you know, my purpose or my legacy is to be an astronaut. But if there's all these other things in my life that don't work towards that, then like that's part of the exploration piece that I enjoy spending time with people with. And it's amazing, you know, as you said, there's more of a realization now that life is not ideally just about being in the office. There is, you know, there's all of these other things to do. There's the community that you live in. Like, how are you impacting that community? You know, what are you doing outside of those work hours? Because that's when that fulfillment piece can come in. So, you know, you want people to be fulfilled and not just happy. And fulfillment is absolutely a lot deeper than just being happy. So it's really important to have that distinction.
Yeah, it's like the holy grail, right?
Mm.
So tell us a little bit about your backstory. Like, we started talking about this before we went live, but
Yes.
you moved around a lot as a
Yes.
kid. So tell us the backstory of Luke Fenwick and how you think that's brought you to where you are today, because part of understanding your purpose and your why is really understanding your story. And I'm sure that there was things that happened to you as a child that shape your beliefs, your values, and what you hold as important. So I'd be really interested to hear your leadership story, and go as deep as you want, man.
So many years ago, I won't say how many years ago, but a lot. So, you know, none of my story at the start, you know, is truly unique or special, possibly. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have done very similar, but, you know, in primary school years, I moved around a lot, you know, 9 or 10 different primary schools. You know, every 6 months to 18 months, we'd pack up and we'd move to another location. And that was, you know, my father's work, you know, and that was just what he did. So I was always used to that. That led to high school. You know, high school, we kind of settled in the one spot in eastern suburbs here in Melbourne. And, you know, we didn't really move at that point in time, but, you know, on reflection back, you know, I really had a difficult time going deep into relationships or really, you know, spending time or just forging those bonds, because in my younger years, I just didn't do any of that stuff. So, you know, now I kind of look back at that and understand that a little bit more. But did high school, again, I knew very early on that university was not for me. It just wasn't the way my mind was worked. You know, I enjoyed being at school, but it wasn't for me. So slept in for a while, and then mum said, get out of bed and go get a job. So, I, you know, did that whole, you know, retail thing for about 15 years, you know, my formative kind of career, and did all kinds of stuff. And early on there, that was always, well, what is the next goal within that business? What is the next job? Like, what is the next thing? Like, I had this drive just to keep on going further and further and further, but no reflection on the success that I was having, which was really important later on in life. Left retail and got into Moet Hennnessy. So, you know, LVMH, Moet and Chandon, Dom Perignon, Belvedere, all these really big brands that people, you know, enjoy consuming. So worked there for about 8 years. Traveled the world, you know, fancy restaurants, you know, met Roger Federer, like all this kind of stuff. And I don't mean that in a, you know, trying to be anything other than paint the picture that it was really cool, like had a lot of fun. But it got to the point where, you know, what was kind of coming next again, you know, what was next, not so much enjoying all of this, you know, fantastic lifestyle. And then went to basketball. So I was fortunate enough to meet Larry Kesselman, who was the founder of Dodo, you know, had purchased the NBL at that point in time, and I loved the sport. So I said, look, I'd love to get involved. I'd love to help bring the sport of basketball back to Australia. So he introduced me to Vince Crivelli, the CEO of Melbourne United. And he said, okay, come on board. So I was the general manager of commercial sales there, and we helped bring the sport back and, you know, won a championship and, you know, took it from not in a good spot into a really amazing place. And, you know, my purpose there was about the sport, but it was about the mums and dads and kids and just seeing, you know, how much they loved being, you know, at the game. So I had this amazing purpose. and then left there and went to an advertising marketing agency, and it was just, just not the right spot for me. I started to have a lot of angst, anxiety. It was not a good place for me because there was a few things on reflection. One, I was looking for external validation, people to say, doing a good job, well done, fantastic, and I wasn't getting any of that. So that was something. I wasn't enjoying the process, or I didn't focus on the process of getting better and learning in this new job. I was just focused on, this is a big job, I'm going to be paid a lot of money, and now I'm going to do some property development on the side. So all of these things are really, really important, in life and work, and certainly in the journey is, where do you get your gratification and validation from? Don't just get involved in something to achieve that end goal. Like, enjoy that journey along the way, and absolutely have purpose. And all of these things were missing from this job, which ended up, not being a good spot. So, left there and off I went.
And so you just quit your job and just went all in. You didn't go, oh, I'm just going to try and start this coaching thing on the side, or tell us, because this is one of the things that a lot of entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs want to know. Is like, how do I quit my 9-to-5 shitty job that I hate and start my business? Like, what's the process like? Because people learn from your experience, because I'm sure that you made some mistakes and some things worked and others didn't.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time as a family. So, my wife was really supportive. I'm further along in my career and age, so I really needed to be mindful of, what was happening with the family. So, we had a lot of conversations in regards to this job is not for you. You can see how it's affecting you as a person, how it's affecting you as a dad and a husband. And that for me was the biggest thing. This was not about, let's stick out this job for another 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, and it create havoc everywhere else. Like, that for me was a non-negotiable. So it was like, okay, I'm leaving this. Well, fortunate enough that, we're okay for me not to say, okay, straight away, let's do something else. And then it led to, well, I want to be a coach. This has been bubbling around in my mind for a long period of time. Like, let's get into it. So everything just started to feel really natural and, organic, and the feedback was great. And, got to the point where I'm sitting down and doing my, last sessions and the exam and the presentation to the guys at the J Shetty School. And, that was fantastic. They gave me amazing marks, one of a few on the planet at that time that had passed with such kind of, high marks. So everything felt just, this is the next part. This is the next part. I was loving it. I was enjoying it, enjoying the process. It wasn't just about the life coach down here. It was like, what is the process? How am I getting better? How am I learning? How am I doing good things? How is this then impacting on, my family, my boy, my wife? All of these things were just, bubbling away. And, it's been awesome, but challenging too. Anytime you're doing something new, anything, you're always doing something stretching, you're always going to have that, agitation in your stomach. And that's your stomach saying, hey, there's something here that you're working through, the pain in your mind, and you might, I'm sure you've heard some of this stuff, like that's your brain, creating the new pathways as you're learning something new. So, expect all of these things, but it just had this, right, this is correct. Keep pushing. This is the next goal. This is like the next little step. And, here we are.
So it sounds like everything kind of lined up, and I truly believe in this. It's like, when things are right, it's kind of effortless and it just happens and you're not forcing it. I think quite often people go down the wrong path, or they listen to the wrong people, they get bad advice, and it's like trying to push it uphill. Like, if you're actually living on purpose and you're in alignment, it should feel good and it should kind of just happen. 100%. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're aligned with your values and your purpose, and and they align with your with the legacy, you know, I don't want to keep coming back to that. But if you are saying like, this is how I want to live my life, and these are the qualities, and this is how I act with people, if you're doing those things, then you're going to feel like there's alignment. If you're living outside of those qualities and doing other things, then you're going to have that angst that this is just not what I'm meant to do. The other challenge too is that people often get advice from other people that might have a perspective that is not the perspective in regards that's really relevant to this particular person. And often that can be, well, you know, don't quit your job because it's this, or have you really thought through that? And, you know, that can lead to some challenges. So you've got to be really mindful of, at the end of the day, you know, it is your life. You do need to engage with people if it affects them, especially in family situations. But often you've kind of got to push through. You know, if my dad was sitting here, I remember talking to him about how I'm going to be a life coach, and he kind of had the, okay, yeah, it's a great idea. But, you know, that's kind of part of it as well, is that, you know, don't get that validation and gratification from external places. Find it within. Do the things that's hitting your soul and your heart, and then all of these other things tend to fade away into the background. And when they pop up, at least you're aware of kind of what's going on.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to get, if you're going through one of these transition phases in your life, or you're trying to create a new pathway, it's really important to get a coach, right? Because you can get a mentor or people that you know who've had a business before give you advice, but they'll generally tell you what to do through the lens of their own experience.
Yeah.
Oh, don't do that because that didn't work for me, or whatever. So when you work with a coach, the coach is eliciting what you want and what's important to you, and having those really meaningful conversations to give you clarity on what you need to do and where you're going. Because a lot of the time you might think, oh, I want to do this. But once someone coaches you, you're like, oh, actually, no, that's not what it's about, because they will pick away at the little sore and expose, you know, the little festering root underneath.
Yeah.
So I think that if anyone is looking to make a massive change in their life, quit their job, my advice is get a coach, and, you know, people like Luke who can help you go through that process and you know, have that really meaningful journey is so important. Because from my experience in my own business, the day that I got a coach and started working on myself is the day that me and my business transformed. So I think everybody needs a coach. I mean, I'm biased, but that's my advice.
Yeah, look, it makes sense. And you touched on it before, you know, a mentor is there to say, well, how do you be, you know, a mini version of myself, so to speak? You know, a consultant would come in and say, well, I'll do these things for you. You know, a good coach is there to say, well, you know, what are you trying to do? As you said, you know, how do you get to that root cause of, you know, how you're acting or what you're trying to do? And then how do we create something that's custom for that particular person? You know, how do we give an unbiased perspective? How do we give unemotional, you know, feedback? How do we keep that particular person motivated? You know, if you're in sport, you would go and find the coach. You know, if you're a football person, you know, if you're a Richmond supporter here in Melbourne, being the Premiers, you know, Dusty Martin and all these guys. I'm not a Richmond supporter, but that's okay. You know, they get coaches. They get coaches to help them in a physical sense. You know, you look around, there's coaches for everything, but people often don't look at, well, how do I coach the mind, or how do I coach my life, which is the biggest thing steering everything. But people go, well, no, that's not for me. And some people, okay, totally understand it isn't for everybody, but, you know, it certainly can help, as you said, you know, steer you to the direction that you're trying to get to. It's not say, hey, I'm a coach, you need to do this. It's, well, what are you trying to do? Like, how do we unpack that? How do we get to the root cause?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about what you want, not about what somebody else wants. And that's
100%.
the most important thing. If you come up with the idea or the strategy or solution, you're going to be much more likely to implement it and do it, because you've got ownership on it. And that's what coaching is about. But one last thing I'd love you to talk to us about is, you have a goal or a legacy that you want to leave behind, and that is impacting 1 million lives by 2025. So how are you planning on doing that? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's a big number. When we were talking about it's okay, great number. Then we started to break it down and, in a bit of a tiered approach, 50,000 people next year, 100,000 the year after, all the way. We max out about 350,000 people a year. And that'll be a number of different ways. So it'll be obviously on social media platforms. There'll be subscriptions that we do. We do a newsletter that goes out monthly that talks about all different topics. Next year, we'll launch a digital kind of program, which will be, coaching videos from myself. I have my one-on-one coaching program as well. And then we'll eventually do live events, what that will look like. And, further down the track, whether or not we do a podcast and then, maybe also do weekends away where people can explore in an environment, get people together really to tell the truth, right? Like this is the truth, this is the legacy that I'm trying to create and how do we get there? So it's certainly an ambitious number, but it's made up of many, many different things from, in the flesh to big events and social media. So now looking forward to it. We did a whole heap of stuff I should stop saying we, but my wife, helps a lot with the marketing, but we did a lot of presentations around Are You OK? Day and week, where we touched thousands and thousands of people over the course of that week doing presentation, saying, how do you handle, mental health during COVID and lockdown? And here's some particular strategies to do and discussed a little bit about my story as well. So, trying to do as many of those events as well where we can talk. And often that's what we need to do as people. And, it's all about community and, we need to talk and we need to share stories and exactly what you're doing as well. You get people on and you say, talk to me, tell me what's happening in life. And that helps people. We're in society now where we have the opportunity to have so many things at our fingertips. We can get online, look at YouTube videos, courses, all kinds of stuff. 20 years ago, if you were waiting for new information, you'd need to walk into a newsagent's and look at the new magazine subscription that came out. There's so much that's going on now, enabling people to better themselves. You can make a change right now to live better, love better, care better, talk better, all of these things. So it's about how do you educate yourself and how do you have that awareness to make these changes of what really matters most.
Love it. Well, if anyone wants to learn more about Luke and what he does or get in touch because they want an impact coach, not just a life coach, a life impact coach, which I love. I love the premise of that. You can see his website there. But Luke, where is the best place to find your content and check you out? Is it Insta?
Yeah, I'm doing more on Instagram now. Really present on LinkedIn. All of the links you'll find on the website. So if you head there to lukefenwick.com, but Instagram's luke.fenwick. It's the same on LinkedIn. So yeah, head over there. I do a free 45-minute conversation if anybody's kind of saying, hey, how can this guy actually help? Is he for me? Because you want to find the right person that connects with you. It's not about saying I'm a coach for everybody. You want to find the person that, you really resonate with and you bounce off. So, if anyone wants to have a bit of a chat, then, find me via the website, connect with me on social media. I certainly, the more people that are on this journey to 1 million people, the better, the more. No, I'm encouraging all of my followers and people on subscription to say, who in your life, needs that little bit of help or support at the moment? Who might be just going, wow, 2020 has just not been the year that I expected it to be when I woke up on the 1st of January, maybe a bit dusty. Who do you know in your life that's saying, something's just not right there at the moment. Something's missing. And, I'd love to talk to them. I'll talk to anybody if I can help. Like that's what it's about. Like, how do we impact on those around us and make this community and the world we live in a better place? Like, there's so much separation at the moment. And I think it's time we come together and really help each other out to be better and do better.
I absolutely love it. You're talking my language, and I would love to learn more about your live events. Like, the thought of going to a live event for me, is so exciting after this year of no human contact and death by Zoom and video.
Absolutely.
But it's been amazing talking to you. I've loved hearing your story, and I'm sure that the listeners have got a lot out of it. If you want to get in contact with Luke, we'll be sharing all of his handles when we publish this podcast on Buzzsprout. But thank you once again. I hope you have a great day, and everyone who's been listening, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate the time. Be safe, be well, and be present, everybody.
Love it.